Welcome to the Bulldog State of Mind. I am one of the hosts, Belinda Munoz. I am the chair of Staff Assembly Executive Committee, the co-chair of the Alegria Mental Health and Wellness Group, and I work in the Jordan College. And this is my co-host, Melissa Norris.
Hi, everyone. Melissa Norris. I am a health educator at the Student Health and Counseling Center and also a member of Staff Assembly Executive Committee. Glad to be here today.
And of course, we are so excited to have our very first guest here today, which is our president, Saúl Jiménez-Sandoval. Thank you so much for joining us. This is so exciting and a long time coming.
It's great to be with you.
Thank you.
I'm excited.
Thank you. So we began the discussion of creating this podcast back in 2020 when the Alegria Mental Health and Wellness Task Force was working through some options on how to keep mental health and wellness in the forefront. Of course, that's always been an important topic, but I think the pandemic kind of forced us to really take a little bit more of a consideration and think about it a little bit more. And I'm glad we're finally here to do this today, so thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the initiative, and thank you for bringing this to the foreground. It's greatly needed. Yeah.
President, can you talk a little bit more about why this podcast was so important to see it come to life?
I think it's important because we often run around really fast and we don't really take the time to reflect upon what's happening within ourselves and what's happening within our own units and what's happening within the university as a whole as well. And how is it that our work is deeply meaningful in impacting our region and our students. And I know that we say that continuously, but I think it gives us the opportunity to just sit and reflect and then really savor and appreciate the moment. I think we need to do that more often. You know, oftentimes we go through the day and then we say the day is over, but then we have to be conscious that it's cyclical. Everything is cyclical. We are here for this time. In, some years in the future, we will no longer be here because cycles change. So let's come together and really savor, like, these moments are precious.
I absolutely agree. And I think when we talk about this topic of mental health, one of the things that I've found over the years is that we don't talk often enough about it. That stigma related to the topic that makes us kind of dance around this topic or not acknowledge its presence. And I know as a mom, I've tried to work with my kids, 5 and 7, and talking to them.
Those are good ages.
They're great ages, exhausting ages, but they're great ages.
No, don't say that. You savor that.
I will savor it. I promise. I'm with you there. But I try to talk to them already about, you got to eat your fruits and veggies. Yes, you need a strong body. You need to move your body and get outside. But you also have to take care of your mind and you have to take care of your mental health. And so we have those conversations very early on.
That's great.
But I know for many, that's not what they grew up with.
Right.
There's that negative feeling of, I can't talk about this, or that's them. It's not me. I'm fine. So I'm curious from you, what are some of the ways that you personally or professionally try to really combat that stigma that's out there around mental health?
Growing up, I grew up in Mexico, as you all know. And in Mexico, back in the 70s, I'm not sure about now, right? But back in the 70s, neighbors knew each other and took care of each other as well. And by that, I mean, when you know someone, you go to the bakery and the baker knows you and the baker knows what you possibly will get. It's sort of like it affirms you as an individual, right? So that notion of creating community for ourselves within Fresno State is really important. And I think we need to appreciate that and we need to work towards that. So on a professional level, what I try to do is whenever I meet someone, I want to know about them. Mm-hmm. I'm just a curious individual. I want to engage with them and I want to know, like what's happening in their life. And then the next time I see them, I want to hear about the 5 and the 7-year-old and how they're doing and, and everything else, right? So I think just being conscious of the relationships that we have on a professional level, but how it is that the personal is also really important. On a personal level, I try to have pretty strong communication with my own inner team, and that's Mariana and, my 2 kids, Arion and Leo. And within that, within my own self, I need to run. I'm a runner. So if I run, I feel like once I hit the 3rd mile, like I start to melt. It's very difficult for me to actually sweat, right? I don't sweat like most people do. But once I hit the 3rd mile, I start to sweat, and sort of like a third eye appears on my mind, on my forehead. And at that point, I feel like the issues that I have, like they just simply fall in place. And after I run, I know and sometimes, I have my phone on me and I do like voice memos. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do like whatever else, right? Because it just helps me relieve the stress in a physical sense. And then that allows my mind to just be creative and move forward with other ideas. So self-care is really, really, really important.
I couldn't agree more. I think too often, though, we tend to not make time for it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things I hear so often is, I don't have time for that, or I'm too busy, right? I think we wear that busy word as like that badge of honor that I'm really busy and I have a lot going on.
You can't be too busy for yourself, though.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, you're probably one of the busiest people in this room, right? Your calendar, you're running from one thing to the next.
It's pretty packed.
How do you prioritize it and make sure that it stays at the top of your list? And I know you talked about running as being one of those outlets, but are there other things that you utilize to support your mental health?
I don't know if I prioritize, actually.
We're all works in progress.
I prioritize by saying my calendar is booked. I'm really sorry, I can't make it. Right? But if my calendar is available, that's the other thing, right? I feel like in the grander scheme of things, let's say I have a goal of being here for 10 years as president. I'm on my 4th year. I'm almost 50% done. So whatever I don't do, I won't do. So for me, it's an urgency to show up, to engage, to see people, to talk to people, to further the power of Fresno State in a very fundamental way on a personal level with people. So I don't prioritize. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
I used to be a runner too, and I remember that just being out there and taking that time.
Yeah.
And for me, it was listening to the music and just clearing my mind.
Yeah.
But, I can't do that during the day.
Right.
So I know that I have found, and part of staff assembly has been such a great thing for me as personally, because we created a group chat, and sometimes
that's
we
great.
just
that's great.
send out a message and just say, just needing to say that hello. Maybe getting a dad joke from Chris. Or some other, form of just knowing that somebody's out there if I needed
and that you
chat.
Belong. That there's a place in a group that you belong to.
Correct. It makes me, it gives me peace of mind when I'm at work. And sometimes just getting out of my office, I think a big part of what we do as staff assembly is trying to bring individuals out of their office so that they have that, pull back and get that sanity again and not staring at their computer, because our workloads can just sometimes just take over us.
They can.
And just like your day, and I see you as when I see you riding on your scooter, you seem the happiest and just kind of unwinding at that moment. So,
Thank you, Belinda.
But yes, so President, how can we as an institution and as individuals support one another in prioritizing their mental health?
I think it goes back to that concept that I spoke about of creating community with each other, and then of just being clear about who we are. Sometimes when there are issues between individuals, and of course it happens because we're very complex human beings, that's fine, but can we just talk about it? And oftentimes what I see is that, when I was chair of the department, I would see sometimes that individuals pour their heart and soul into the position. And when a recommendation or a criticism or constructive criticism comes their way, it seems like immediately they get offended because their identity is on the line. So at that point, I would say, can we think about the bigger picture? It's also, on the other side, can we be constructive with our ability to further, right? Let's not criticize, but let's be constructive in saying, hey, this is a great idea. However, have you thought about 1, 2, and 3? So that you affirm the individual and then you build upon, something moving forward. Whenever I ask my kids to do something, and I'm not implying that there be a parent-child relationship at all, right? But it's just a dynamic of asking someone to do something. One thing to say is to say to them, do this because I say so. And that comes across as very top down. And immediately my reaction to that would be, I'm going to be defensive and I'm going to arm my garrison against you, right? So instead of that, say, would it be possible for us to work on this by implementing these processes that might potentially help and move it forward faster? So can we work together rather than do it, right? So that's one part. The other part is, can we be sensitive in terms of the amount of energy that went into the original proposal that's before us? And then really affirm it and say, this must have taken you a lot of time and a lot of energy. I really like these areas. Can we talk about these other areas to improve it and make it more efficient? I think once we do that, then we affirm that, that sense of us, I did it. It took me a lot of work and I need some acknowledgement on that. So can we be more conscious of the individual in terms of their work on a professional level, but there's always something very personal about us in everything we do. So everything I do has my DNA imbued within it. So can we be aware of that, like personal DNA, acknowledge it, and then move forward with, a nice sort of collaborative, diplomatic way of moving processes forward. If a deadline was passed, say, hey, really sorry, but I think you missed a deadline. Is there something that I can do to help you move it along? Right? Not just say, you missed a deadline, what's going on? There's a shift in tone, I think, and in collaborative appreciation that happens whenever you reach someone with a different tone, with a tone of, let's work on this together.
I think you touched on a really important part of this is that I think our roles on campus, especially in higher education, you got a lot of passionate people.
You do.
And I think we weave a big part of our identity
totally
into the work that we do.
Yeah.
So you're so right about that being such a huge component of it. And I think it's also the reason why I find a lot of my colleagues struggle to take that time off for themselves or to take the breaks, to go take a vacation day, to have that extra space for themselves, because they do wrap so much of their identity into this of, no, but I'm passionate about what I do. I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to miss that. But I think it's also one of those things that we have to support one another.
We do.
And saying it's okay to take that time.
Totally.
And you're still going to have that role and you're still making the impact that you are on campus.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the pieces I've even had to catch myself on.
Right.
Of, oh yeah, I'd like to take a day off, but I have so much to do.
No.
Right. Again, I think it's how do we change that culture? And I think that's a hard change to make.
Sometimes I have a really difficult issue before me. And if I have 15 minutes, instead of sitting down and working on my email, which is always growing, I actually go outside. I take a walk to the Armenian Memorial. I touch the water. I, say a prayer or a thought, and I just walk back to my office. Just that small break allows me to interrupt the rhythm of intensity, and then I return with new ideas, new energy, new ways, new perspectives of actually engaging that issue. And most of the time, I will find the solution on the way back. Because I smile to people, I say hello to the students, I say hello to the staff. That's really important to know. If you go without a break, without leaving your office, that's not good. You need to just say, I'm going to take a walk and I'm going to move forward.
I also believe that I think that's the important thing for all of us to remember, that sometimes somebody's just not having a good day. And
And it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It is okay to not have a good day. I remember when my kids were little and just trying to get them out of the house and getting them in the car and dropping them off and getting to work on time. Yeah. And by the time I got there, I was already flustered. And so it was, So I think we just have to remind each other that it maybe we just have to take a breath in. And
give yourself some grace.
Something exactly.
Yeah.
It just might not be a good day. Well, President Jimenez-Sandoval, we really enjoyed having you here with us today.
It's always too short, right?
Is there anything else that you would like to share with us before you? Any final words?
Let me read you just a really brief quote. John Masefield was a poet. He was Britain's poet laureate from 1930 to 1967. So he was Britain's poet during World War II. So he saw a lot. And then he wrote this poem in 1946, right after World War II, when London is just completely destroyed because of all the bombings that the Nazis did to the city. But he wrote a poem on the occasion of the inauguration of the Chancellor of the University of Sheffield. So here are a few phrases that I want to share with you. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed at everything that's happening, and we feel like there's no other time in history that has been this bad, right? But here's Masefield. The other day, I also came across this tablet from a Sumerian, like 4,000-year-old tablet that said, this is the worst time of history. The kids are not obeying their parents. I mean, it was like one thing after the next, right? But I wanted to share this with you because we need to get into the rhythm of we will overcome, we will move forward, and we have a mission. So that was my intention with this. So here it goes. There are few earthly things more splendid than a university. In these days of broken frontiers and collapsing values, when the dams are down and the floods are making misery, when every ancient foothold has become something of a quagmire, wherever a university stands, it stands and shines. So with that, I leave you with the incredible mission that we have at Fresno State to educate the next generation of leaders. And we say that lightly sometimes, but it's so deeply meaningful. When I became president, I've said this before, I received about 120, 150 emails. And most of those emails were from previous students of mine. And I wanted to know where they were, and they were everywhere. There were counselors and family therapists, and there were accountants, and there were teachers, and they were working for the UN. I mean, incredible amounts of power are held within the futures that we help empower moving forward. So the staff is fundamental to this mission. Without the staff, I have said this over and over, the university would not run. So I want to thank you for all you do. I want to thank you for this incredible amount of work that has taken, to do this podcast. I think it's just tremendous. So thank you for everything you do. Thanks to all the staff who pour their heart and soul into what they do each and every day so that Fresno State can become that beacon of light for others to come, for our students.
We really appreciate that, and I hope you can join us again sometime.
Yes, I would love to.
On a future episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. Thank you, Melinda.
Welcome back to the Bulldog State of Mind. We were so excited to have President Jimenez-Sandoval as our first guest for our very first episode. So this is just exciting to see where we go from here, right?
It really is. Now, it was wonderful to hear his words. Really to set the foundation, I think, for the series. I think there's a lot of conversations we plan to have, but getting to hear that take, I think, from the president is really important for all of our staff and faculty to be able to hear.
Yes. And, it just shows that we really do have support and the mental health and wellness of everyone on campus is so important.
Yeah.
And I know we do a lot for our students, but as we mentioned before, we have to personally be in a good state of mind in order to put our, best foot forward for our students.
Exactly.
And our families when we leave campus. So,
and we have to model that too. I think that's the other piece of it, is that if we don't practice these things, but we preach them, what good is that at the end of the day? I mean, I really have to catch myself, I think, with the students I work with. I encourage them to take that time for self-care and support their mental health, but am I doing it too? And if I'm not, I've had some of my students who will check me on it and say, hey, don't forget, take your break. I had a student this morning who's like, hey, did you take your lunch break? Are you going to take a break? Yeah. And those reminders, I think, are so important.
And I think we need to do that for one another.
Yes.
On campus, in our offices, in any type of committee you're in. Just friends, I know I've made some great friends on campus. And so just friends, sometimes just checking in.
Yeah.
And, personally, this has been so important to get this off the ground. I know it's been a few years coming, and we have been working on trying to make it happen, but I think it's happening when it's supposed to happen. And personally, mental health and wellness is so important. I was raised in a family where we didn't really talk about this kind of stuff. It wasn't until I was an adult, married with children, and my previous job was in banking, and I had an unfortunate event where I was robbed. And so my job made me go to therapy because I was struggling, and I was having a hard time with that whole situation. But if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I ever would have really taken the time to reflect on my own mental health and wellness. That was a hard time for me. And I think in that, I was able to recognize a lot of other things that I had not ever talked about. And since then, my sisters and I, my mom, my kids, we've had some really good conversations about self-care and our own mental health and wellness. And it's still something that we are constantly thinking about. And it's helped me through some struggling times since then. It's been, probably well over 20 years since I had that robbery happen. And as terrible, awful as that situation was, it brought this other piece that I don't know who the person I would be today if it wasn't for that.
Well, and all too often, I think that's what it takes for a lot of us to get to that place and to seek out that support, is something really big that happens. But I think that's exactly what we want to make sure to change, I think, culturally about our environments, is how do we start that conversation early? I mean, I think for me, I was fortunate in high school, I think, to be a part of a peer counseling class where we talked about mental health. And it was kind of okay, I got language very early on to start talking about it. But I think what I found so often, both in that experience, even going through college, there were so many individuals who didn't know how to have the conversation around it, who struggled in silence. And it was just what you did. You didn't want to burden people with your problems. You didn't want to create challenges where there weren't. And I think that was what I think has always made me so passionate about this topic, is that we're struggling in silence. And then what happens when we don't talk about it? Because I think that's just as frightening. We're coming up on Suicide Prevention Month. As someone who's been affected by the loss of someone by suicide, what happens when we don't talk about it is very frightening. So I think the more that we engage in these conversations, the more we, create generations that do talk about it. And I think we've seen a shift in that, I think, over the years, where it's become more acceptable to have that conversation where people can proudly say, I've gone to counseling. It's been a great experience. I learned this from my therapist. And I love hearing that, because those are the things that really show me we're making changes.
And it's not, we've had some major things happen in our life, but I don't think that mental health and wellness is all about the big things, right?
No.
Sometimes it's about the small things.
I think it's more about the small things.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just having an overwhelming day, or just, one small thing that has taken place, or a conversation that took place, or maybe nothing. maybe I've had days where just getting out of bed and coming to work, and, I'll share a true story of a lot of what I do with staff assembly requires me to put a smile on my face all the time. I come to campus, I say hello, and I got to put a smile on my face.
Yeah.
And there were times, those mornings, that I was like, I don't even want to talk to anyone, let alone get out of bed to have to go and put a smile on my face. But it's taken me enough time to be able to, whether it's breathing exercises or just reflecting and saying, you know what, you've got a few hours, you can do this. Yeah. And sometimes it's telling myself you can do this, or sometimes it's calling up somebody and saying, all right, guys, I have to do this. I just need you to remind me that I can push through the day, because it's those small things sometimes that we forget, or we don't think are as important as the big things.
Yeah. Well, and asking for help on those days. I mean, gosh, I think we've all had those days where we get up and we're at work, and yes, we have a job to get done, but we're not at the full capacity we can be. And I think it comes down to that whole idea that we are not our jobs. It is a part of who we are, yes, but that is not the full definition of who we are. We are individuals coming from whatever's going on in our home worlds. We're still carrying those things with us. It's just like I say when I get to work, I'm not a mom because I walked in the office. I'm still a mom. I still got that hat on. I'm wearing it every second of the day. We have all these other segments of our lives, of our identities. And so remembering, giving ourselves that grace that the president talked about of, there's going to be days where we're not 100%, but are we giving whatever percentage we have to give? And if we're giving that, I think we can be proud of ourselves for where we're at on that day. And whatever we can't give, it's asking for that help and support. I think especially within our colleagues, what can we do to reach out to the colleagues around us and see how they can support us? Because we're not alone. And I think we need that reminder sometimes.
Right. And it's okay to say, I'm not okay. I'm not okay.
Yep. We need to normalize that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the things with staff assembly, that I have really enjoyed being a part of it, because we do our best to bring a lot of smiles, right? We have all these events, and we are providing food, and, or maybe it's just a scoop of ice cream or something that gathers people and almost kind of forces a conversation, right? When they're standing in line to get food, or when they're standing in line to get a scoop of ice cream or get into an event, they're having those conversations, and that's important. But staff assembly has really been a big piece of me, because we have those conversations.
Yeah.
And just planning, to put this podcast together and planning events. We talk about it, and we share each other, how we're feeling. And it's a good space that we have provided. And I really hope everyone on the team sees that as a good space to communicate and share.
Yeah, just like we tell our students they need to get engaged in their community and their campus, we've got to do it too as staff and faculty. I think it's important for us to get that connection, because you're right, it's those relationships that at the end of the day make work not feel like work every day.
Right.
It makes it something extra special. And I think really that's what I look forward to as a part of this podcast series, is to continue to shine the light, keep talking about these things, bring it to the forefront of our minds. Even if that's once a month, every time we release a new episode, we're reminding ourselves that, hey, have I done that check for myself? Have I done something for my own self-care? What do I need to do? Is it pause to go take a 15-minute break and go visit the fountain and touch the water? What are those things that we can be doing to integrate into our days?
What do we have to look forward to next?
Well, I'm excited. So our next episode, we have Georgiana Negron-Long, our new organizational development manager, who will be here. I'm pretty excited because she's going to really help us kind of talk about how we set ourselves up for success in a new year, which I know, at least for me, I look at each academic year, it's kind of that fresh start, right? It's a new beginning, a fresh opportunity. So she's going to share kind of some of her own tips and tricks about how she kicks off the new year. But she's also going to introduce a lot of resources. And I think, again, we focus a lot on resource education for students, but us as staff, we have a lot of great resources too. So she's going to kind of provide that framework so that on those days things are a little rough, she can help to support and be able to get us connected to the right resources too.
Well, I'm excited to hear what she has to say. And I personally have utilized some of the resources on campus. So I'm excited, to hear what else is out there.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for her and her new job and her new role here on campus. So that'll be nice to have spend some time with her too.
Definitely. And that episode I know releases on our next Red Friday. You want to talk about Red Friday a little bit?
Yes. So we have a couple things coming up. So September 13th, Friday the 13th, will be our first Red Friday. And we are going to be launching a new episode at every Red Friday of every month. So the next one that'll be launched will be Friday, September 13th. Come out. You'll hear all the information on campus news. Hopefully, maybe an email will go out. But if not, campus news will always have the information. You can always go to our website and get our schedule of events of what's going on. And then, we've got a whole lineup for the fall semester I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. Well, and we want to leave our listeners with a little call to action, a little homework, so to speak, I think is an appropriate term for our college setting here. Because I think when we talk about this topic, we can do a lot of talking, but there's also a lot of power in the doing. And so we are going to ask all of our listeners to take the opportunity before the release of the next episode to reach out to someone you know and check in on them. I think we underestimate the power of that simple reach out to say, I'm thinking of you, I'm here for you. How can I help? Or simply, can we go get coffee together and talk? So take time to do that reach out, connect with someone around you, let them know you're there for them. And we will see you on the next episode of A Bulldog State of Mind.
Thank you.